Hello everybody, this is Pastor Green. We're doing another Bible study, 1 Kings chapter 21. If you'd like me to come speak at your church, or if you have any questions, email me at godsohman@gmail.com. So we finished the last chapter, and it says, and he said unto him, Thus saith the Lord, because thou hast let go of thy hand a man whom appointed unto utter destruction. Therefore thy life shall go for thy life, and thy people for thy people. And the king of Israel went to his house heavy and displeased, and came to Samaria. If we look at 1 Corinthians 10, this is, Moreover, brethren, I would that these shall be ignorant how all the fathers were under the cloud, and passed through the sea, and were all baptized unto Moses, the cloud of the sea, and to eat the same spiritual meat, spiritual rock that followed them. That rock was Christ. So basically what they're saying is all these people left together in one accord, and they all drank the same food, ate the same food, and they all drank the same drink because they were all in Christ. But with many of them God was not well pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now these things were for ensamples, and the intent that should not lust after evil things, as they also had lusted. Some of these people weren't very happy because they were eating the same stuff and drinking the same stuff, and they wanted the luxuries of home. This is supposed to be an example, to look at what's going to happen in the future. What should we think about? What should we do? Neither be idolaters, as for some of them, as it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Neither let us commit fornication, as some of them committed, and fell into the day 320,000. Neither let us tempt Christ, as some of them also tempted, and were destroyed by serpents. Neither murmur ye, and some of them also murmured, and were destroyed by the destroyer. Now all these things happen unto them for ensamples, that they are written in our admission, among whom the ends of the world are come. He's saying that all these different things happened for certain reasons. They're there so you can look back and see what they've done, so you don't make the same mistakes. If you look at the map here, you can see here's the flood, then here's Abraham. And God came to Abraham and gave him a promise. He told him that he was going to multiply the seed. He told him he was going to give a certain amount of land. Different things God promised him. And if you look here at the map, the area in red there is a land that was promised to Abraham. It helps to learn a lot about the land of Israel to understand the Bible. This is the promised area of Abraham. And then after Abraham, his Hebrews were enslaved in Egypt. Then you had the mass exodus of Moses. And then of course they had Judges, King David, King Solomon, and the book of Kings, which we're talking about right now. And you can see here, Israel is much smaller than New Hampshire, and it's God's example to the whole world. See, they were supposed to get this big, huge land, but a lot of different things happened. Under King Saul and David, this is what it looked like. You can see the area in blue there. But then because of Solomon's two sons got into a big civil war, it's even smaller now. 1 Kings 21, verse 1. And it came to pass after these things that Naboth the Jezreelite had a vineyard, which was in Jezreel, hard by the place of Ahab king of Samaria. So this guy had a vineyard that was right next to King Ahab's house. You can look here at the map. Here's the Jezreel Valley. This is about the area that they're talking about. And you can see right here, right above that's the Mount Morah. This is the area that we're talking about right now. So the king looked over this vineyard and said, wow, I like this vineyard. It's right next to my house. I think I want it. It says, and Ahab spoke to Naboth, saying, give me thy vineyard, that I might have it for a garden of herbs, because it is near to my house. And I will give it for thee a better vineyard than it, or it seems the good of thee, I will give you worth of money. So he's basically saying, I want this vineyard. It's next to my house. It'd be good for growing herbs and things like that. He said, I'll even make you a deal. I'll give you, more money than it's worth, or I'll even give you a better vineyard, but I want it because that's my house. It sounds very reasonable, but you have to understand Jewish law. King Ahab went to the guy and he said, "I want your vineyard." And the guy's like, "Yeah, I don't really want you to have my vineyard." Proverbs 31, it says, well, there's nothing wrong with buying and selling property. That's not the issue here. Solomon told a wise woman she considered a field to buyeth with the fruit of her hands and planted a vineyard. That's not the problem he's looking at. Exodus 20, it says, "Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thy neighbor's wife, thy manservant, maidservant, his ox or his ass, or anything that's thy neighbor's." In verse 3, it says, "And Nabat said unto Ahab, The Lord forbid it, that I should give an inheritance to my fathers unto thee." So the guy's saying, it's not about the money, it's not about the vineyard, it's the fact this is my inheritance, this is my father's property, and under the Jewish law, I can't give it to you. If you look at Levitical law, it says the land should not be sold forever. You're not allowed to sell property belonging to your family. And down here it says, if you're not able to restore it, which was sold shall remain in the hand that bought it to the year of Jubilee. And in the year of Jubilee it shall go out and return its possession. So if for some reason you can't take care of this property, you're allowed to sell to somebody else. But at the year of Jubilee, they have to give it back to you. So the asking price you're going to get is not what the land is worth. It's what it's going to be worth for X amount of years till the year of Jubilee, which it has to go back to you. And it says here, "But the field of the suburb of the city may not be sold, for it is perpetual possession." It means that if it's in the city, it's always going to belong to you and you can't sell it. And Ahab came into his house heavy and displeased, because of the word that Naboth the Jezreelite has spoken to him. For he said, "I will not give thee the inheritance of my fathers." He laid upon his bed and turned his way his face, and he would eat no bread. So the king Ahab was very sad, because he knew the law of the Jews, and he knew that, even though I gave this guy this great offer, he's legally not allowed to sell to me. And it really hurt his feelings, because he wanted the vineyard. He was very sad. There's some sad kids there. That's what King Ahab was. He was sad. So Ahab was going to be discontented and displeased. If you look at the last chapter in 43, it said, "And the king of Israel went to his house heavy and displeased, and came to Samaria." Many, or at least most of the world's problems, or from our own personal problems, come from wanting what other people have. If you look at 1 Timothy 6, it says, "Perverse disputations of men of corrupt minds and destitute of the truth, supposing that gain is godliness, for such withdraw thyself. But godliness with contentment is great gain." So being content in what you have is a good thing. "For we brought nothing into this world, and certainly we will carry nothing out. For having food and raiment, let there be content." So no matter what's going on in your life, you need to be content with it. "But they with a certain which fall into temptation and a snare, and to many foolish and hurtful lusts, which would draw men into destruction and perdition. For the love of money is the root of all evil, which is some covenant after that they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through many sorrows." It doesn't say money's a problem. It says the love of money, because when you love money so much, you're going to do whatever it takes to get more, and usually that's some shady business. "And the king of Israel went to his house heavy and displeased, and he came to Samaria. He was not very happy. He was very sad. He cried in his bed and didn't eat." Back to 1 Kings 21:5. "But Jezebel his wife came unto him, and said unto him, Why is my spirit so sad, and thou eatest no bread? And he said unto her, Because I spoke to Naboth the Jezreelite, and said unto him, Give me thy vineyard for money, or else, if it pleases thee, I will give you another vineyard for it. And he said, I will not give my vineyard." So he's telling his wife, this guy has his property, it belongs to his family. You can't sell it because of Jewish law. "And Jezebel his wife said unto him, Doest thou now govern the kingdom of Israel? Arise, eat bread, and let thy heart be merry, and I will give thee vineyard to Naboth the Jezreelite." She's like, "You're the king, you can do whatever you want. Don't be sad, I'll take care of it for you." Now you have to remember that Jezebel was a worshiper of Baal, and she didn't have the same beliefs as God's people. She didn't have the 10 commandments like, thou shalt not steal, or thou shalt not covet, to guide her thinking. And the Bible's pretty clear. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not covet as part of the 10 commandments. You should also not lie to your neighbor. You shouldn't kill. Should have any other gods before you, and she was a Baal worshiper. And thou shalt not make the agreement image. They worship this golden bull. And all throughout the Bible, it talks about following God's commandments. You can see all these different verses about God's commandments. Following God's commandments. Psalms 119 says, The Lord is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. Psalm 73 says, Thou shalt guideth me with thy counsel, and afterward receiveth me glory. You know, there's all these different verses in Psalms 119. Every one of them talks about God's law and commandments or statutes. 1 Kings 21 verse 8. So she wrote letters in Ahab's name and sealed them with a seal, and sent letters to the elders and the nobles that were in the city dwelling with Naboth. So she took her husband's name and sealed it with his signet ring. So basically, they thought it was coming from the king. And she wrote in the letter saying, Proclaim a fast, and say Naboth on high among the people. And set 2 men, sons of Bedal, before him, to bear witness against him, saying, Thou dost blaspheme God and the king, and then carry him out and stone him that he may die. So this Queen Jezebel saying, I'm going to say the king wrote this stuff, and I want to get rid of this guy Naboth. I want to ruin him. So I want 2 guys to lie about him, saying he blasphemed God, so they got to stone him. Again, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor, and thou shalt not kill. And the men of the city, even the elders and nobles who were inhabitants of the city, did as Jezebel had said unto them. And it was written in them, the letters which they sent to them. They proclaimed a fast and set Naboth on high among the people. Now remember, the Bible said in Deuteronomy you have to have 2 witnesses or 3 witnesses to convict somebody of a crime. And she made sure there was 2 people. And there came in 2 men, the children of Bedal, and set before him, and the man of Bedal witnessed against him, even unto Naboth, in the presence of the people, saying, Naboth did blaspheme God and the king. And they carried him forth to the city, and stoned him for stones, that he died. And then they said to Jezebel, saying, Naboth is stoned, and he's dead. And it came to pass, when Jezebel heard that Naboth was stoned and was dead, that Jezebel said to Ahab, Arise, and take possession of the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite, which he refused to give thee for money, for Naboth is not alive, but dead. And it came to pass, when Ahab heard that Naboth was dead, that Ahab rose and went down to the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite to take possession of it. You know, there was this little story here about how the indigenous people viewed the Europeans in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. And it says there's not really one answer to this question, but this was a view shared by many of the Indians in 1910, by the chiefs of the South Swap, the Agudon, the Caddo nations of British Columbia. They said at first they came here saying they only wanted the gold, and we knew the latter was their property, but they didn't use it for much or need it to live by, so we didn't really care about them searching for it. They told us your country's rich, you've been made very wealthy by our coming, and we just want to pass over your land for the quest of gold. And soon they saw our country was good, and some of them made up their minds to settle it, and they commenced to take a piece of land here and there. And they told us they only wanted to use these pieces of land for a few years, and then they'd hand it back to us in improved condition. Meanwhile, they would give us some of the products they raised for the loan our land, and they commenced to enter our houses or live on our ranches. And with as a person enter our house, he becomes our guest, and he's treated hospitably. He's treated really well, and as long as he shows no hostile intentions. At the same time, we expected him to return us equal treatment for what he received. They thought they would treat him the same way we treated them. And presently, the chiefs or the government officials commenced to visit us and talks with us to our chiefs. And they told us, don't have any fear, the Queen's law would prevail in this country, and everything would be well for the Indians here. Then they knocked down our post of all the Indian tribes, and it said there's no lines except what they make. And they have taken possession of all the Indian country and claimed it as their own. And they never consulted us in any of these matters, nor made us any agreements. And they stole our lands and everything in them, and continued to use the same for their own purpose. They treated us less than children, and allowed us to have no say in anything. And they told the Indians that they don't know anything, and they don't own anything. And yet their power and wealth has come from belongings. And the Queen's laws, which we believe guaranteed our rights, the British government had trampled underfoot. And this is how our guests treated us. The brothers received hospitality in our houses. So the Indian people were not very happy with the settlers coming here, because they basically lied to them and then took everything they had, just like Jezebel did to this man. 1 Kings 21:17. And the word of the Lord came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, Arise and go down to meet Ahab, king of Israel, which is in Samaria. Behold, he is in the vineyard of Naboth, whether he's gone down to possess it. There's many ways today to deliver a message. You can do it by phone, or by mail, or telegram, or instant message, or voicemail, or email. In fact, there's a little chart here talking about different reliability, how reliable and how fast it is compared to how slow or how unreliable it is. You can even take a can and a string and rip it across there and talk to each other that way. You can do radio or podcasts. You can have a billboard build up to say give a message. This right here from Les Paul said, I never stopped being amazed by all the different ways of playing the guitar and make it deliver a message. You can put a message in a bottle. You can text message somebody. You can use your phone, your walkie-talkie, or you can even have a pen or paper. Can you hear me now? How about now? How about, can you hear me now with the bat? 1 Kings 21:19. And they shall speak unto him, saying, Thus saith the Lord, Hast thou killed, and also take possession? And thou shalt speak unto him, saying, Thus saith the Lord, In the place where dogs lick the blood of Naboth, shall dogs lick thy blood, even thine. He's basically saying, you've done this to him, the same thing's going to happen to you. In 2 Kings 4, verse 2, it said, And Elisha said unto her, What should you do for thee? Tell me, what hast thou done in thy house? And she said, Thy handmaid has not a thing in the house save a pot of oil. It's a great question. It's a great question. Do you have anything in your house that's stolen? Maybe the entire house is stolen. Do you get paid to work 8 hours but only actually work 4? 1 Kings 21:19. And thus shall the people say unto him, Thus saith the Lord, Hast thou killed, and also take possession? And thou shalt speak unto him, saying, Thus saith the Lord, In the place where the dogs lick the blood of Naboth, shall dogs lick thy blood, even thine. And Ahab said to Elijah, Hast thou found me, O mine enemy? And he answered, And found thee, because thou hast sold thyself to work evil in the sight of the Lord. See, Ahab knew what Jezebel did was wrong, but he didn't seem to care. Behold, I will bring every evil upon you, and I will take action on prosperity, and I will cut off Ahab and him that pisses against the wall, and let him that shut up and left Israel. And I will make thine house like the house of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, like the house of Baasha the son of Elijah, for the provocation wherefore they have provoked me to anger, and made Israel to sin. And of Jezebel also speaketh the Lord, The dogs shall eat Jezebel by the walls of Jezreel. Him that dieth in Ahab the city, the dogs shall eat, and him that dieth in the field shall the fowls of the air eat. But there was none like Ahab, which did sell himself to work wickedness in the sight of the Lord, whom Jezebel his wife stirred up. And he did very abominably in following idols, following all the things of the Amorites, did the Lord cast out before the children of Israel. So even though Ahab knew the right things to do, he still chose to follow his wife and her gods. All throughout movies and Disney and stuff like that, there's always a woman who's the evil person. There's a evil person in Cinderella. There's even a book called Evil Women Deadlier Than the Male, because women are pretty vindictive sometimes. Here's the evil woman of Snow White. Here's Madame Medusa. Here's Ursula, the Queen of Hearts. You got the Maleficent and the lady from 1001 Dalmatians. You got the girl from the Duck movie, the Kim Possible movie. You even got the girl from He-Man. This right here is Evil Women Deadlier Than the Male. The most evil women in history. Different evil women in movies. Women So Evil, the collection of true crime. Talking with female serial killers. Dangerous women, serial killers of the 20th century. Female serial killers and why they become monsters. Maleficent. Back to 1 Kings 21:25. But there was none unto Ahab which did sell himself or work wickedness in the sight of the Lord, whom Jezebel his wife stirred up. And he did very abundantly in following idols according to all the things that the Amorites whom the Lord cast down before the children of Israel. He followed his wife, and his wife made him do really bad things. Proverbs 31 talks about a great woman. Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. The heart of her husband doeth safely trust in her, so that she shall have no need of spoils. She will do him good, not evil, in the days of her life. She seeketh wood and flax, and worketh willingly with her hands. She is like the merchant ships, and bringeth her food from afar. She rideth also while there is yet night, and giveth meat to her household, a portion of her maidens. She is considered a field, and buyeth it with the fruit of her hand, and planted a vineyard. She girded her loins with strength, and strengthens her arms. She perceives that her merchandise is good, and candles goeth not out by night. She layeth her hands in the spindle, and her hands hold the distaff. She stretched out her hands to the poor, and she reaches forth her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of the snow, for her household, for all of her house is clothed with scarlet. She maketh herself coverings of tapestry. Her clothing is silk and purple. Her husband is known in the gates, when he stirreth among the elders of the land. She maketh fine linen and selleth it, and delivereth girdles to the merchants. She strengtheneth the honor of her clothing, and she shall rejoice in the time to come. She openeth her mouth with wisdom, and her tongue is a law of kindness. She looketh well to the ways of her household, and eateth not the bread of the idols. Her children arise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many daughters have done virtuously, but thou excellent of them all. Favor is deceitful, beauty is vain, but a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her the fruit of her hands, and let her own praises be in her gates. Back to 1 Kings 21, verse 27. And it came to pass, when Ahab heard those words, he rent his clothes and put sackcloth upon his vest, and fasted, and lay in sackcloth, and went softly. And the word of the Lord came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, Seeth how Ahab humbled himself before me. Because he humbled himself before me, I will not bring the evil of these days, but on his son's days I will bring the evil upon his house. So Ahab knew what happened was wrong, but he didn't seem to care. And finally, when he was called out of his wicked ways, they said, okay, God's going to forgive you, but he's going to punish your kids because you're teaching them these bad things of what Jezebel wants you to do. And the main purpose of the Lord's Supper is to make all of us examine ourselves to see if we're right with God. 1 Corinthians 11 says, For I have received the Lord that which is also delivered unto you, that the Lord Jesus the same night which he was betrayed took bread. When he had given thanks, he broke it, and he said, Take, eat, this is my body which is broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me. And after the same manner he also took a cup, and when he had supped, saying, This cup is a New Testament of my blood. This do ye as often as you drink it in remembrance of me. For as often as you eat this bread and drink of this cup, do show the Lord's death until he comes. He's saying that, every time you do this, I want you to think about me. Are you following me? Are you doing what I commanded? Are you a good servant of mine? This is something to look at yourself internally. Wherefore, whosoever shall eat this bread and drink this cup of the Lord unworthily shall be guilty of the body and the blood of the Lord. But let a man examine himself, and so let him eat of this bread and drink of this cup. So he's saying, if you're doing this and you have some problems in your life, you need to come to the Lord and ask for forgiveness and say, I've messed up, and you got to try to change your ways. Because if you're just doing it to do it, you're basically guilty of crucifying the Lord himself. So do this in remembrance and look inside yourself and realize that you have some changing you got to do. For he that eateth and drinketh unworthily eateth and drinketh damnation to himself, not discerning the Lord's body. For this cause men are weak and sickly among you, and many sleep. If we would judge ourselves, we would not be judged. So the chapter summary from Matthew Henry. Ahab is sick for Nahab's vineyard, verse 1 through 4. And Naboth dies by Jezebel's plot, 5 through 14. Ahab goes and takes possession of the vineyard, 15 and 16. Elijah meets him and announces the judgments of of God against him for his injustice. 17 through 24. And upon his humiliation, he is a reprieve is granted. 25 through 29. In 2 Kings 9, Jezebel gets her punishment. It says that when Jezreel came to Jezebel heard of it, and she painted her face, and she tied her hair, and looked at the window. And as Jezreel entered the gate, he said, "Has Emerald peace, who slew his master?" And he lifted up his face at the window and said, "Who is on my side? Who?" And looked out at them for 2 or 3 eunuchs. And he said, "Throw her down." So they threw her down. The some of her blood was sprinkled on the wall, on the horses, and trod underfoot. And when it was come in, he did eat and drink, and said, "Go down, see this cursed woman, and bury her, for she is the king's daughter." And they went to bury her, but they found no more of her than a skull and feet and the palms of her hands. I saw this interesting story, and I thought I'd share it. It's kind of funny. There's this country preacher, and he's applying for pastorate of this church. And then he goes there, and a committee is interviewing this preacher, and they're asking this preacher, "Do you know the Bible?" And the preacher says, "Yep." And they said, "Okay, what's your favorite book?" And the preacher says, "Oh, it's Mark." And they said, "What's your favorite part?" And he says, "All the parables." And they said, "What's your favorite parable?" And the preacher says, "The story of the Good Samaritan." And the people say, "Well, can you tell us the story?" He said, "Yeah. So one day this man was traveling from Jericho to Jerusalem, and he fell down, and the thorns grew up and choked him. And he got up. He didn't have any money, but he met the Queen of Sheba. And she gave him 1,000 talents of gold and 1,000 raiments of clothing. And he got on his chariot and he drove furiously. But while he was driving under a juniper tree, his hair got caught there and hung up in the tree. And he hung there for many days, but the ravens brought him bread and ate water to drink. And he ate 5,000 loaves of bread and 2 fish. But one night while he was hanging there, his wife Delilah came and cut off his hair, and he fell on stony ground. And he got up and he started to walk, and it began to rain. And it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. And finally it stopped, and he came to the city and looked up, and he saw the old Queen Jezebel sitting high in that castle window. And he said, "Throw her down there." So they threw her down. And he said, "Throw her down again." They threw her down 70 times 7. And the fragments that remained, they picked up 12 basketfuls, not including women and children. And they said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, whose thy wives will be on that judgment day." Guys, I thought that was funny. I thought I'd share it with you. Well, guys, that's the video. I appreciate you guys watching. If you have any questions, you can comment below. Make sure you subscribe, like, tell your friends all about it, share it with them. On the bottom of the screen, I'm going to put on the bottom right the 1 Kings Bible Study. Top left, I'm going to put the Exodus Bible Study. On the bottom left, it's going to be a video that YouTube thinks you're going to like. Guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Hope to see you guys in the next video. I think we only have 1 or 2 chapters left of this, and then it'll be all over. We'll start 2 Kings. See you guys in the next video. Have a great day.